Hey y'all, howdy. Welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandra Broadwell, and today we're doing a very exciting video, which is the 2023 Book Awards. These are all of the best of categories that I came up with and had a good answer for, inspired by some other booktubers' best of videos that I've watched recently that were super fun to watch. I read 100 books total in 2023. A few caveats. This is not my favorite or like top 10 list because I really didn't have a very easy time distilling down like a top 10. I had like a pretty distinct top 6 or so, but definitely not a top 10. And so I thought this would make for a more fun video. All of my favorites are definitely on this list, but not necessarily all of them on this list are my favorites, if that makes sense. Other caveats, I only gave best of specific genres if I read at least 10 books within that genre. So there are 3 of those: fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. The rest of them are just kind of general categories that you'll see as we get going. I have 18 categories total. I tried to keep it to 1 book per category, but I did not always succeed. Some of those books have 2 categories. Some of the categories have 2 books. The other caveat is that I tried to only use each book 1 time. I don't think I succeeded every time, but I did try. So there's some categories where it's like, oh, I can't believe this book isn't there. And it's probably because that book is in another category already. Okay, those are all the those are all the caveats. I've got a crazy feisty kitty in the car with me right now. So let's dive into the 2023 Book Awards. Award number 1 is Best Fantasy, and this goes to Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I had such a great time with this book. The setting, the characters, the cool countdown aspect of it all. It was just gripping directly from the very first chapter. It is a fantasy set in a pre-Columbian era North America. It is about the coming reincarnation of the Crow God and how that affects all of the societies and the different caste systems throughout. There's lots of political intrigue in this series. There's lots of really cool magics and creatures. I just absolutely ate it up and can't wait for more. Next up, we have Best Sci-Fi, and this goes to Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. That would be my number 1 if I was only going to pick one, but Stories of Your Life and Others is a collection of short stories. So for all you girlies out there who aren't really into short stories, I'm also providing a novel, which is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. Stories of Your Life and Others is a series of science fiction short stories. There are some real bangers in here that I am still thinking about, even though I read this, I think, way back in May. I just absolutely love Ted Chiang's writing. I read his other collection of short stories last year, which was called Exhalation, and that was also in my favorite books of 2022. So Ted Chiang is just incredible. None of his short stories feel abrupt or underdeveloped. They all feel like complete stories every time, and the concepts that he plays with just boggle the mind, and I absolutely love him. This Is How You Lose the Time War, on the other hand, is a epistolary format novel. It's pretty short. It is a series of letters that are left between 2 different soldiers on opposing sides of a time war. At first, the letters start off as they're kind of bragging to each other about their victories, but because these 2 sides of this war are so separate from each other, through the letters they actually start to get to know one another and get to realize what it's like to be on the opposite side of the war, and it humanizes the other side for them. And eventually there is a bit of a slow burn. I won't reveal it all, but it's a truly wonderful story, and it has all of the best elements of time travel within it. So definitely give it a go. Category number 3, my last genre, is Best Horror. And this goes to The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This was a really close call for me between Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark or The Only Good Indians. But if I have to think on a technical level, I think I probably had a more fun time reading Ring Shout, but I was more horrified reading The Only Good Indians, and I still had an amazing time reading it. It is truly incredible, and the writing is just so sharp. So yeah, I think on all of the technical horror aspects, The Only Good Indians definitely takes the cake in this category out of the 10 horror books that I read in 2023. Category number 4 is Best Series, and this goes to the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. I had the best time with this series. I didn't want to put it down. I absolutely loved all of it. I think my favorite of the series was book 2 because it was just nonstop. I felt like so many things were happening. It was just like go, 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 go. And it was so exciting the whole time. And there were so many twists and turns that I didn't see coming. It was a delight. The Daevabad trilogy is about a young woman who is a bit of a charlatan living in Egypt. She has some unexplained kind of magical healing powers. One day when she is performing kind of a fake healing ceremony for a client, she accidentally summons a jinn, and the jinn is super pissed and he kidnaps her and takes her to Daevabad, which is the city of the jinn, and she gets involved in all of the royal politics, and she finds out about all of this incredible racism that the jinn have among their own species, and the power dynamics at play, and royal families that usurped previous royal families, and all of this kind of stuff. It's just super, super fun. There's so much good stuff to be had, and the main character and her relationship to these two different jinn in her life is just like the connecting thread that makes the whole thing feel so powerful. The series also ended on, for me, such a high. It was not a perfect last book, but I gave it 5 stars anyway because it was the perfect ending to the trilogy. Everything just wrapped up in the best possible way. Not that everything ended happily, because it definitely didn't, but it ended so satisfying, and I absolutely adore this series, and I cannot wait to read more books by S.A. Chakraborty in the future. Number 5 is Best Sequel, and it was really hard not to give this one to the Daevabad trilogy, but this one right here definitely takes the cake, and that is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. This is the 3rd and final book in the Green Bone saga, and holy moly. I read the first 2 books and I was like, oh yeah, these are really good, you know, on like a 4-star kind of vibe. And then I read the 3rd book and it completely changed how I felt about the entire series. 5 stars. I was ugly crying, like bawling my eyes out when I got to the end of Jade Legacy. And I didn't even realize I cared about that series this much. I was just like, oh, Fonda Lee had me by the throat. It was incredible. And the characters in this series are just so real. They're all, you know, a little bit morally gray. It's such a compelling series about a fictional Asian country that has a stone called jade that imbues its users with magical powers, and there are clan families that control the jade, and so it's kind of about these like mafia wars going on between the major families that control the jade. It's so good. The series follows the Call family, and for the most part the 3 major siblings of that family and their younger cousin are the main characters throughout the 3 books, but Jade Legacy jumps forward in time multiple times throughout the book, and so it gives a bit of a wider scope at the end, which I just loved. If you are looking for a really unique urban fantasy, absolutely pick up the Green Bone Saga. Okay, category number 6 is Best Cinematography, and can you not step there, Pokey? So cinematography I just kind of took to mean like setting, world, or atmosphere in general. And so I am splitting this category to 2 different awardees, and that is Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno Garcia and Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I loved both of these books so much. Certain Dark Things just had a super amazing world building. There were different subspecies of vampires that colonized different parts of the world, and the ones in Mexico became demonized by human society. the vampires of Mexico became these drug cartels. And so it's about a young woman vampire who is fleeing from a warring drug cartel family that has just murdered her entire vampire family. And it's about a young man who is a human that she kind of becomes friends with along the way as she's trying to escape Mexico. I just thought all of the different aspects of the different vampire clans and the drug trade and everything that was wrapped up in that was just so compelling, especially for such a short book. I felt like I would read a whole series in that world. Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This is the same author of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but this is a very short book by her, and it is just a magical world. The main character is a man named Piranesi who lives in a magical infinite house, and the house is enormous. The rooms are like huge halls filled with statues. There's an entire ocean inside of the house, and he spends his whole life just exploring it and trying to discover what all the house contains. There is one other person that he meets within the house who he calls the Other. There's lots of mysteries to explore, so I really don't want to reveal too much. But if you want just a super atmospheric, kind of mysterious read, then Piranesi is where it's at. Category number 7 is Best Plot Twist. And this goes to The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. This is book number 1 of the Library trilogy. This book had multiple plot twists. The whole time I was reading, I had ideas and theories, and I was close, but I was not correct. And that made it really exciting for me to continue reading. It's a story about 2 young people. One of them is a girl who lives out in the dust, which is like the abandoned kind of desert area of the world. And the other is a young man who lives in an infinite library. The library goes on forever. He has never been able to find a way out, and he lives inside with his siblings, but he really wants to escape the library because he has vague memories of a life before being in the library. Good, you can control the feist cat.
What's up, baby?
The book kicks off basically when the young girl who's living in the desert, her village is attacked by these foreigners, and she is dragged into the city where the library is contained. After that, the stories of the 2 characters start to intertwine, but there's some weirdness with time, and you're not really sure if they're interacting with each other at the same time or if it's in the future or in the past. It's all very intriguing, and like I said, there's multiple really good twists that had their hooks in me this whole book. So absolutely recommend if you're looking for some intriguing plot twists. Category number 8 is Best Friendship. This goes to the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. I thought the friendship between Darrow and Severo was just so perfect. Darrow is the main character, and Severo is his friend that he makes at school. In the first book, they're not even really that good of friends, but as their friendship just develops so much over the following 2 books, and Severo really is Darrow's like ride or die. He's so loyal. They're so committed to each other as friends, and even when they fight, they see the bigger picture of their friendship despite the differences that they have, and I just love that. Even though if it's not the healthiest friendship all the time, it was a really good friendship that I got to sink my teeth into. Category number 9 is Best Romance, and this goes to Mika and Jamie from The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sengu Mandana. This is a little bit of like a Grumpy Sunshine romance, and the story is about Mika, who is a witch in our modern world, and she gets an email from a household saying they want her to come train the 3 young witches that live there who are siblings. She's not really sure how to feel about it, but she decides to go see what that's about, and there's a librarian that lives at the house named Jamie, and he's very protective of the young girls and doesn't really like the idea of Mika coming to invade their lives, but it just is really, really cute and heartwarming, and I was like giggling and kicking my feet a little bit while I was reading that book, so definitely gets Best Romance of the Year. Category number 10 is Best Written, and this goes to Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a nonfiction memoir and absolutely should be required reading for every American. It is the story of the young woman who was the victim in the Brock Turner rape trial, and she is telling her own story in her own words, and she is just an absolutely beautiful person and a beautiful writer. And the book was very emotional and triggering, but it was also just so stunning and so important, and it was really a cultural touchstone moment. Her story is part of what helped start the Me Too movement. It's just a really eye-opening read, and I think again should be required reading. So highly recommend this. Even though it's hard, it's well worth it. Category number 11 is best cover, and I gave this to two different books because they're both so great for very different reasons. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. The dead rabbit with the fungi growing out of it is just so awesome and gross and horrifying. It's obvious that you're getting into a horror novel when you look at it, and it just definitely makes you want to pick it up. The second one is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This book is about parallel universes, but it is also about a young woman who grew up on the outskirts of society. Her people are rejected from the clean, modern, mainstream city, and she kind of infiltrates that through her job and is basically trying to make a space for herself in the city. And so I just love the juxtaposition on this cover that shows both the gritty, dirty world that she's from and the clean, sparkling city that she wants to be a part of, that also shows kind of parallel worlds that she is traveling through in the meantime. So I just thought this was an excellent cover for a sci-fi book that just from looking at the cover gives you a great idea of what the story is going to be about, and it's beautiful. Number 12 is Best New Author, and this is not a new as in debut, but just a new to me author that I read this year, and this definitely goes to P. Jolly Clark. I read both Ring Shout and A Master of Jinn by this author this year. I loved both of them, but Ring Shout was definitely one of my favorite books of the year for sure. He just has a way of building worlds and characters in a very short amount of words that are so compelling and intriguing, and his ability to build to a really epic climax in a story is just unparalleled, and I cannot wait to read more books by him this year. Category number 13 is my best book accomplishment, so the book that felt like the one I was proudest to say I have read, and this goes to the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, or the Three Body Problem series. These books are all really long, and they're also really complicated, dense reads, and not just because they're translated and about a foreign culture, but also just because the sci-fi concepts within them are really dense, and the characters themselves are not super compelling, and so it's just the ideas that kind of drive you through the story. And so you really have to be on your A game, I feel like, reading this book to comprehend everything that's going on and try and put all the pieces together. The first book I thought was the weakest, and it got better and better, and just the concepts alone made these books worth the read. So I would highly recommend The Three Body Problem if you are into hard sci-fi and want to have your mind blown. Category number 14 is Best Supporting Actress. So I wanted to give some shout out to some side characters that I thought were really great this year. I have two for this one as well, and this goes to Steris from Mistborn Era 2. Steris is the wife of the main character. In the first book, I didn't like Steris. She seemed stodgy and stuck up, and I just didn't like her. And her character development over the course of the following 3 books really just flipped my opinion on its head. She had a lot of depth and a lot of growth, and she became, to me, one of the most interesting characters in the whole series. So I really loved that for her and was excited to have a female character with depth in this series. The other Best Supporting Actress goes to Wynn from the Greenbone Saga. Wynn was the wife of Call Hilo. She is a very kind of understated character because she does not wield jade like the primary members of the family, but she is kind of pulling the strings a lot of the times behind the scenes and providing guidance and a balance to Hilo's character, and she just has so much wisdom, and in a lot of ways she is the heart and soul of the family, and I just absolutely loved how understated she was, but how important she was as a character. Category number 15 is Best Supporting Actor, and this goes to Casca from Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. There were so many great characters in this book, but Casca just cracks me up. He's obviously a very morally gray character. He's like an alcoholic. He is constantly betraying the people who trust him. His motivations are very monetarily driven, but at the same time, he's just so like real and upfront with himself about it, and he always has like these snarky little one-liners that make me laugh. And he not only changed the trajectory of the story, but also provided guidance to some of the characters within it that they needed in the moment. Category number 16 is Best Actress, so basically Best Female Character, and this goes to Evelyn Hugo from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Evelyn is an extremely morally gray character once again, but she just has so much depth and complexity, and she really feels like a real person all the way from the beginning to the end. You know, she manipulates people in order to further her career, and she just does her life on her own terms, regardless of what anyone has to say about it. And I love that for her. She is definitely not an inspiring character, but she was a very, very interesting character, and I just absolutely loved reading her story. My second to last category is Best Actor, and this goes to Dara from the Daevabad trilogy. Dara is the djinn that kidnaps the main character in book 1, and he is such a haunted person. He has been through so much, and he goes through so much over the course of this trilogy. He's really taken advantage of and idolized and enslaved. I mean, he just goes through everything that a person could go through. And I was just on the edge of my seat trying to figure out how his story was going to end. That S.A. Chakraborty managed to give him a satisfactory ending, even if it wasn't the happiest of endings. I was so glad. The other like main actor, I guess, of the Daevabad trilogy could have also been in this category, but I'm giving it to Dara just because he's such a tragic character and I just loved him to pieces. Okay, and then the final category, number 18, is the Best Antagonist of 2023. And once again, I'm giving this to two different characters. The first one is the Woman in White from the Great Cities duology, which starts with The City We Became. The Woman in White is basically like an alien entity that is attacking New York City. And once you realize what her motivations are and why she's doing the things that she's doing, she completely makes sense as a character, and you realize that she's not really evil because she's only trying to destroy New York City to like save, you know, hundreds of other cities, but she's obviously still evil because she's trying to destroy the city and all the people in it. So I thought that was super fascinating, and the way she manifests in the city is through things like capitalism and gentrification and basically like destroying the character of the city from within. I thought that was just a great vessel to talk about those sorts of themes through the story. And K. Jemisin did just such an amazing job with her. She was so easy to hate, but also so recognizable. And that was really cool. And then the other best antagonist is Ait Mata from the Greenbone Saga. Once again, I said I try not to use the same books more than once, but the Greenbone Saga has a lot going for it. Ait Mata is the head woman of the opposing mafia family to the Call family. She is just so like deliciously evil. Like, it's so easy to hate her, but at the same time, her motivations are all so crystal clear. And even like multiple times throughout the books, the main characters even find themselves reflecting or saying like, oh, well, yes, I'd be doing that exact same thing if I was in her shoes. But what she's doing is in direct opposition to the family and the characters that we care about. And so we hate her. But she is just a really great character with so much depth. And she was a great opposing force to the Call family in the Greenbone Sagas. Those are all of my best of for 2023. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know some of your answers to these categories down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your best of 2023 was. I'll leave all of my categories in the description down below in case anybody wants to just copy and paste them and use them in your own. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out with me for a little bit today. I hope 2024 is treating you well. As always, please be kind, read books, and hit the subscribe button below for more bookish content to come. I'll see you soon.